Coming up on this episode of Cade Friends, our guest this week, Tip Crowley.
Hello. Radio is something that I think is still really important, and it's a community broadcast, and we're still very local. We do a lot of community events, we do a lot of calendars, and we play a lot of local music. So I think my favorite part is still connecting with that community. I think that we're seeing radio kind of step in and take some of that desire for local, for community, in media. And so I think it's serving a really good purpose.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of Cade and Friends. I'm here with my co-host Alex Clare and our guest this week, Tip Crowley.
Hello.
Tip was a professor of ours at Rogers State University for radio, audio production, different things. And also, I worked under him at the radio station.
Yeah.
RSU Radio 91.3 FM.
And I worked under him in the TV station, like physically.
Oh, no, like
the TV station's below.
How long have you worked for RSU Radio?
Well, I started here as a student back in 2005. Started volunteering as just a DJ. Let's see. After that, I started doing some work with the music director. So I think I officially started working in 2006. And then I worked until 2010 as a student, and then I came back in 2014 as a full-time employee.
You've met quite a few people in the scene, though, like the...
On the scene.
Yes. The scene.
The scene.
The one scene.
The alternative, a lot of starting.
The alt scene.
You see a lot of people starting,
Yeah.
I guess. You would,
Yeah, I'd say so, yeah.
Which I think...
People like to ask me if I've met famous people through radio, and I can't think of anybody famous that I've actually met. They're like cool people that I know, but most people are like, oh, who's that?
You're meeting them before they get famous. None of them.
Most of them get not famous, don't get famous. So
Most of them get not famous.
yeah, I make them less famous than they were before. So
statistically, though, one of them is bound to rocket off.
Statistics.
based on what? What statistics are you basing that off of?
I mean, just
Just basic statistics.
I mean, it's basic odds. They have a 50-50 chance of being famous.
What do you think is the rate in which people are famous?
I don't know. How many famous people are there?
Tip, how many famous people are there?
900? Something like that?
900.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a viable number. I think people
Round
could think
up to
it
1,000.
Yeah,
Okay.
1,000.
Yeah.
And there's only 7 billion people in the world.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and everyone has a 50-50 chance of being famous.
Oh, that doesn't.
Either
I
you're
don't think that math checks out, Alex.
You were a comm major, weren't you?
Well, you either become famous or you don't. That's 50-50, yes or no.
Well, just interview all 7 billion people. And then statistically, you will have interviewed future famous people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's 50-50. As we
Yeah,
said.
50-50. It would be at least 3.5 billion famous people on your podcast.
Well, you got to think of it though. It's like flipping a quarter. Sometimes you'll just keep flipping tails. 100 times in a row. So but it's still 50-50.
So that's what you've done with all of your radio interviews. Is you just keep flipping tails, Tip.
Can we just do 2 hours of Alex's math? I'm enjoying this.
I don't want to date you or anything, Tip, but
I'm married.
That was a mean thing to say.
Kind of sad.
Just first off, this is off the table.
I didn't think it was that kind of show. But.
It's Cade and Friends dating show.
Yeah,
this is the dating episode.
No, you started as a student here when we were 9 and 10.
I didn't have to do that.
I thought you were.
I am older than you. Yes, that is correct.
I thought you were at max 5 years older than us, but you are.
I'm 36.
You're 36.
I don't know how old you all are, but
that's 10 years older than us. I think that's safe to say.
Yeah, it's safe to say.
that Alex math coming back. Yeah.
So I guess I always just thought you were like 4 or 5 years older than us. So I didn't realize you would. 10 year start on us.
Any comment about that?
I jump around. So yeah, just 10 years older. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It was more in my brain when I
have that happen sometimes. My students, I have a wide range of like my students have different perceptions of how old I am. Some of them are like, you can't be more than 30, and some of them are like, oh, I thought you were 42 or whatever. And so I don't know what it is, I guess.
Which one do you appreciate more hearing?
None of them. I don't care. Age is not an issue for me. A lot of people are worried about it, but I just don't care.
Well, you look great.
Thank you.
I think you have like that cool vibe, of professors.
You could
Our
be
professors. Wait, hold on. Like all professors are. I can think of a few.
You have like you could. I feel like Gen Z would be, would accept you.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to be accepted by Gen Z?
Maybe Gen Z,
See, I actually, from experience, they typically don't. But that's okay. I don't. Yeah, I'm
Have they
fine with
publicly
that.
not accepted you?
Well, I don't know. I can't understand what they're saying half the time. So, no, it's
so you don't try to get down on their level.
Not really. No, I have noticed that in recent years there is a lot bigger gap in between like my cultural references and their cultural references. Like I think with your class, we could talk about the same kind of movies, but if I make a reference to the live action Super Mario Brothers movie, they don't even know that exists, and so. Which is a
media
crime.
literacy's on decline.
It is, yeah. So I think I don't mind whatever they think, whatever age they think I am, but I think it's kind of weird when I make a joke from like a Simpsons episode and they're like, "What's The Simpsons?"
Are you proud to be a millennial? Because you're a millennial.
I don't know. I'm not into that kind of stuff. Like I think everybody's just kind of their own individual, and obviously, there are generational influences and stuff like that. But
so did you bring up the Mario movie? The live action Mario
I actually
movie?
did, yes. Yeah. I actually played the trailer for him. We were talking about adaptation. So, it's my intro to mass comm class. It's kind of an introduction of how media works. And we were talking about adaptation, and they were talking about the Mario movie. I said, well, there was one in the past, and a couple of them kind of shook their heads knowingly, and the rest of them, we watched the trailer and they laughed. And yeah.
Yeah, well, that's good.
Yeah.
Did you see that? Did you see either of the Mario
No,
movies?
I did watch a YouTube review of how bad the old one was, but I did not watch either of the Mario movies. I've only played the Yoshi's World or the Yoshi.
So you haven't even played Mario games?
The only one I played was the Yoshi one, where you play as Yoshi with Baby.
That's bizarre.
That's the only
It
one.
is.
I didn't play. I wasn't much Mario.
Oh,
Mario.
my whole childhood was Mario, all of it.
So have you seen the live action?
I have seen bits and pieces of when it would play on like TV. I don't think I've ever sat down and watched. It was never like enough to sit down. But I know of it. Bob Hoskin and
Well, that could be on your double feature movie club.
I was gonna say it's worth a watch just for how out there it is. I'm not even gonna say bad. I don't think it's bad necessarily, but it's so weird what they did to the IP.
Yes, they adapt. I guess that would make sense for your adaptation class, or you're talking about adaptations or whatever, because it is what they changed, and it is kind of crazy. A lot of the what's Dennis Hopper's playing Bowser, and he's just Dennis Hopper.
Yeah.
Well, if you wanted to, you could post the entirety of the movie just in 3-minute TikTok clips, and you could get your class to watch it that
That's
way.
what you could do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Cut it vertical. And give them an assignment that way.
Play some Subway Surfers underneath it, and
you go.
that is the way of TikTok.
Yeah,
that's how you can speak to this Gen Z audience.
See, I don't even have a TikTok, so I don't know whether you're being honest or
I'm being dead
facetious.
honest.
Okay,
people put full movies on there and break
I've
it
heard
up,
about that.
And they do. I mean, some studios have actually just went on the bandwagon. This is how we can capture this.
Yeah.
I think Mean Girls did it very famously. They put it out on whoever the production company is, studio that did Mean Girls, in order to get this new.
Wouldn't you get ads in between each one though? So is it? I mean, you'd have to get ads every once in a while.
Well,
Yeah.
if you're on their page and you go to part 1 and you scroll, you're not going to get any ads.
Really?
But if
Okay.
if it comes on your For You page, then like you would probably get an ad before. But yeah, no, you could watch the entire movie seamlessly. You just have to scroll every 3 minutes.
And because our attention span's down, what he's saying is Subway Surfers is they put the bottom half of the video some sort of video game.
I have seen that on Instagram. So
It's I've thought about doing it for this podcast if the guest is.
What would you put on there though?
I don't know. But they do Grand Theft Auto courses or
Yes.
Subway Surf, some sort of mobile game or
You could do
Minecraft. Yeah, yeah. It's just only if the guest is boring and what they're saying, only the audio's interesting.
So right now, underneath, we're playing, Battletoads or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like that. Yeah.
This would be the perfect time to for Cade to put one because we're talking about it.
Sure.
Yeah.
And we're boring the heck out of the audience right now.
See, I am intrigued. Why don't you considering you do a communications classes? Why don't you have a TikTok?
Well, it's illegal, isn't it?
What, for me personally, so the radio station had one, and then the governor basically decreed that state organizations can't have one. So
Governor's decree.
Yes,
No
yes,
TikTok.
yes. He walked through the streets with the bell, and So we had one. I don't think it's up anymore, but so for that period of time, I downloaded one, and I just didn't really love the way that the content was set up. I really, when I think of social media, I'm looking at my friends' content. I'm not really as interested in those For Me Explorer random
like a
Reels
channel.
pages.
You want like a Truth Social type of thing?
Yeah, I'm used to the old school, Facebook page where it's just only your feed and not like a bunch of other stuff going on. So yeah, I don't know. I still like my media to come from more traditional media sources. So I'll listen to albums or watch movies or watch TV series or something like that.
So RSU Radio on Truth Social could happen if we. It's a bad joke. It's a bad joke.
So, So you enjoy what? So Facebook is what your preferred platform is there?
Instagram.
I spend more on Instagram. Yeah,
Instagram.
more time on Instagram. But I usually just go look at my friends' photos and then go do something else.
Yeah.
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 I'm not against it. It just doesn't speak to me.
Yeah.
I think Vine did it better personally.
Vine. Do you ever have a Vine?
So my biggest regret in life, well, not my biggest, but it's up there.
Just say it. Say it, Alex.
Is your biggest regret in life Vine related? I really hope so.
Well, so I never downloaded it.
Finish the sentence. Say it how you were going to say it, and face the consequences, Alex.
My biggest regret is never downloading Vine.
Great. Great.
You've lived a very easy life, huh?
Well, that's why I backtracked. Like
I think that's what you
I've
meant.
had bigger regret.
It halfway through the sentence, my biggest regret was never downloading Vine. Alex's all his other regrets popped into his head and was like, well, maybe I shouldn't say that.
So, but I for a long time I was very slow on jumping on board like social media, and so like I was late to joining TikTok. I never downloaded Vine. By the time I would have gotten around to it, it was deleted. And so that's something I try to be aware of now, of just like, is there something that's coming out that would, replace something?
You and Threads?
Well, I don't have
Instagram.
I don't have Instagram.
You have Threads? Have we done that?
I started one and then I just immediately deleted it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. It's hard to know what stuff's going to be the, big thing that's going to take over or whatever.
If you adapted early enough, you could be one of the people who shoot up fast, and then you can kind of have your, one of those people. And so that's always, I was like, if I would have done a Vine, I mean, would I have, I probably wouldn't have, because I would have been 12 or 13. Like I was super cringy and awful. So thank God I didn't. But that is something I think of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish I was a little bit earlier to TikTok. I mean, TikTok was around, when we were in
Musical.ly.
college. It was Musical.ly. People had Musical.ly.
And that's why I didn't like it, because I was like, I don't see a point of me downloading this app that lets me sing along to songs.
Yeah.
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 I feel like I have enough social media in my life personally. I just I don't need more of it. And I just can't get into the short form as much as other people, I think. I really prefer long form media. Like, I'll listen to albums instead of songs, or I'll, watch a movie instead of a clip, So it's just a personal thing, I guess.
You listen to our podcast?
I do, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've caught every episode, but I've heard a lot of them.
Are you going to listen to this one?
No.
Why not?
Just can't. Just can't. I hear my own voice enough.
Anything that you've seen on our show that you were like, you know what, that's a topic that I want to wade into?
I just want to know what My Little Nicky is.
That's a throwback. Yeah, we haven't done Little Nicky's in a while. We didn't.
Yeah,
we don't have a Little Nicky for you. I'm so sorry.
Well, I assumed that was the case, but I was kind of hoping a little bit.
We could maybe
live.
We could live spitball one.
I'll just sit here staring straight ahead for 15 minutes.
So
okay, now that we've explored all of these things, now we'll turn to you.
I will say I do think it's time for a confession.
Oh. I think we finally reached the point of the show when we do our confessions. Okay, Alex.
Is that a new segment? I don't think I've heard that.
It's a new segment to me too.
Okay,
So I
right.
didn't know this was.
It only applies to very select few people that we can have on the podcast.
Okay.
Mostly people we've either worked for or taught us. How much? Then this is really Cade should be the one asking this, but
I don't know what you're going. Boy, would I, Alex? If I knew
really
where this
thought.
is going.
So,
confessions
Cade
time?
worked here for several years, and Cade made a lot of content, and I was often a part of a lot of that content.
We're doing this.
Are you okay going in?
I can't fire you now, so it's okay.
Were you aware of Did you have?
It was not. We shot. We recorded different things here.
We did a lot of filming here. Often when I was in the TV station and Cade was up here.
I was recording, we record my show in the evenings and everything. And so we'd have Alex come up and we'd record different comedy bits and different things. Just, I don't know, for fun and different things. I mean, we had the studio space here and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was no one here.
Here.
We would, particularly always made sure no one was here when we would do it. And so, did you have any inkling that was going on, or was that was it just we weren't causing any harm, so no harm, no foul?
How good's your security here?
I mean, I have a log of every time somebody punches something in on the alarm, but no, I mean. If I was aware of it, I don't remember it. But yeah, I think that's kind of a nice part of at least the radio station. And I assume probably, at least when I was a student, the TV station as well, is, we encourage you to be creative. And, if you work here and I trust you and you're responsible, then that's fine with me. So, yeah. But no, I didn't know. Cade, you're fired. Alex, you didn't work here, but you're fired too. I don't know.
Well, see, mine was probably a little more controversial because I worked at the TV station and I was the only one who was down there. And so I had to just trust that the equipment would not catch in flames. And that
Were you working master control?
Yes.
And you would come up here?
I would come up here.
Would you at least go down when you were supposed to go down there? And
every half hour.
Was this when you had to manually switch programs?
No.
Okay.
The only thing I had to make sure was that the TV or that any of the discs were in, so the discs would play, and they would start up. So I would always be like, "All right, Cade, we're at 10 minutes till.
Yes,
I need to get down there to make sure that the switchover."
I'll let you in on a secret. When I was a student here, I would do my show Wednesday evenings. It was 7 to 9 p.m. And so it was just me and then my buddy KO, who worked here and the TV station, and he would work master control. This was back when you had to manually start something, and if you weren't there, then the programming wouldn't run. Well, he would do the same thing, except it was a lot higher stakes. So he would be up here, and then he'd be like, "Oh, I got 30 seconds, or else we're going off the air," and he would run downstairs. So that's nothing new. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So there you go.
So yeah, you're good. You're good.
Yeah, there was.
It's encouraged.
I could say that, but
it wasn't as long as that. But do they even have a student master control operator anymore?
They have a full-time master control operator who is. I don't know if they have students who help out, but I'm pretty sure James is the only master control person anymore.
I mean, they were heading that way when we were there because they were slowly going all digital.
Yeah.
And then they've gotten the upgraded, facility. The room changed because I checked it out afterwards.
The thing with Master Control is it is not that exciting to do as a student. So if you're a student worker and your whole job is just to to just sit there and monitor, I don't think you're getting a lot out of that. So I think instead of that, student workers work on production, or they do graphics or something more involved now. So yeah,
I liked Master Control just because I was able to sit there and do my homework. Because for a 6-hour shift, really I'm only putting in like an hour, maybe 2 of work, depending on like
sprinkled throughout.
Sprinkled throughout, and there was the stuff that I needed to get done like immediately, which was digest things.
Yeah.
But once that's done, my last 3 or 4 hours was just making sure that did I put a disc in? Was the time put in right? And did we play color bars or anything? And as long as the black screen didn't last long or the color bars didn't last long, we were fine.
Yeah,
definitely gotta.
Sorry for using so much of your podcast for that.
I'm learning things. I never worked Master Control, so no, that's cool.
But Cade worked it, and then he came up here and worked.
Yeah,
worked here, and so.
So what do you? So you're is it general manager now? Is that the title of the of RSU Radio here?
Yes.
What do you enjoy most about that working in radio?
Just radio in general. I there's a lot of stuff. I don't know if there's one thing I could point to. I think my favorite part about working here is just getting students involved, getting people that first experience or continuing their experience with broadcast or media production in one way or another. So I think that's my favorite part. Radio is something that I think is still really important, and I know not a lot of people, not as many people see it as important as they used to. But I think it's really important still. It's a community broadcast, and we're still very local. We do a lot of community events, we do a lot of calendars, and we play a lot of local music. So I think my favorite part is still connecting with that community as far as the broadcast side of things. Favorite part about the station though is definitely getting to work with students and kind of helping them develop throughout their careers and helping develop skills and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And what's great is it's not great for other things, but for here, it's one of the only independent, non-corporate, stations in the market. And most markets are pretty owned by the major corporations. And
I think radio is starting to. It's sort of starting to go back to at least somewhat smaller ownership, especially in smaller towns. I think there are. Obviously Cumulus and iHeart and those, they still own the majority of stations, but you are seeing more small ownership groups kind of pop up in radio, and so that's kind of nice as well. You still get a lot of local aspect. I think a lot of people are going to radio from the local newspapers. I think that we're seeing radio kind of step in and take some of that desire for local, for community, in media. And so I think it's serving a really good purpose. So yeah,
I'm a big fan of, I listen to NPR a lot, and because I'm a big fan of NPR. And so when I'm driving, because I often drive to here from Ohio, I do use a lot of Bluetooth, but then sometimes, I'm just like tired of it. I'm just like, okay, I get bored of listening to what I have on my phone. And I like to just scroll through and find the local, NPR station. And we're technically a
public radio.
A public radio, yeah, not an NPR, but a PR.
Yeah. So there are a lot of great NPR stations out there, and again, that goes back to the local aspect of it. Obviously, NPR is national, but you get the local coverage along with it. And we've had a couple of reporters from NPR stations in Oklahoma be a part of that, move up to a part of that national level of reporting, which is really, really cool. And you're starting to see indigenous stories show up on national NPR broadcasts because they're listening to those local reporters. I think the public radio in general serves a really important purpose in broadcasting, and the fact that radio stations are able to do that is really nice. You don't see quite as much local, in my opinion, you don't see quite as much local in television broadcasts and things like that.
I think this could be a cool little segue. I've always kind of thought of, RSU Radio could be, because we do a lot of local stuff, and that might be a way that local radio stations or, like the other radio stations around, they might hear something from. Is that something that happens? Will they maybe, hear a local band and say, you know what, I want to put this on, The Edge or, Mix or whatever?
Maybe. There are some radio stations do listen to local, art and music and things like that. I think the majority of commercial radio stations are still really operating on the what's proven model. So they want radio listeners are really quick to change the channel. And so whenever you play a song that they don't know or that they don't like, it's kind of risky because you're really running the risk of somebody going, I don't want to check this out. And then you've lost them to somebody else. So, there have been local shows on commercial radio stations. The Edge had Homegrown for a while. And I think that was like Sundays at 10 p.m. or something like that. So, you're getting some local content, but I think for the most part, commercial radio stations kind of stick to what works and what they're sure is going to work. And that's not a criticism or anything. Like I said, I'm sure I play songs that I like that my listeners are like, I don't like this. And I lose a couple listeners at that point. So, but we're not as worried about maintaining an audience for commercial standard or for commercial audience numbers and things like that. So we don't have to worry about that quite as much. But yeah, I would hope so. I would hope that we would play something local and then somebody hears it and moves it forward with something a little bit bigger. I would hope that's the case. But we're definitely just a part of the whole puzzle these days. I think there's a lot more that goes into spreading local music.
Have you played anyone that's before they got big?
Yes, yes, we have. So
you wanted me to ask that on air, so this is my.
I think probably the most famous band that has come through RSU Radio that I'm aware of was 21 Pilots, and we actually have a big sign poster.
Discovered them.
We were one of the first promoters, I guess, of their music when they were first starting out because they came through Tulsa. They played a show. It was at the Vanguard, and that day they came by and they did an interview with a couple of DJs at the time. I want to say it was Cody, who was our music director at the time, who was just super into them. And they recorded a couple of live versions of songs. They did like Car Radio, and that was before that single kind of took off. And another one, I can't remember what it was. But recently they did an interview with a radio station, I think in Florida, who asked them about when they were first starting out. And they brought up the story of coming here. Because they went to the Vanguard that night and they played to an audience of 3 people two of them were the DJs who interviewed him up here. And when that happened, we had a whole bunch of people email us. Do you still have that interview? Do you still have those? Like we had, I don't know how they tracked us down because they didn't mention us by name or anything. But yeah, I would say that's probably the most famous band we've had come through here. At the time, they weren't famous.
Did you have the interview still?
I think so. I'm pretty sure. I take that back. I'm sorry. One other more famous person that came through is Weird Al.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
That would be probably the most famous person who's come through.
There's a closet named after him in this.
There is an entire closet named after him. Yeah. I regret not working here at the time because, well, I don't regret it, but I wish I had worked here at the time.
It's your biggest regret in your life.
It is. Well, that and Vine, that and Vine.
No, that was in 2014, right? Or was it 2015?
When Weird Al came?
Yeah.
13?
Was it 13?
Yeah, because I was here in 14, so it was before I came through. Probably 13.
Anniversary of
UHF. Yeah. So yeah, I mean we've had some famous people come through. I think we tend to get artists who are famous wouldn't be the right word, but they're well known within like certain communities. So we had
like Saint Motel come in.
Saint Motel came through. Frankie Cosmos, we interviewed her. We've done quite a few artists who are popular in their genre, but they're not necessarily what you call famous, I guess. But
so known in if you're a big fan of that, like metal music, you would probably know them. Or
most artists are now is like they have their sort of their group and their niche, and well, I mean, just genres have fragmented and everything.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. So if I say, Flogging Molly, at the time I interviewed them, it was a huge deal to me because they were one of my favorite bands at the time, but also they were like this huge name in, like these little offshoots of punk rock. And I don't know if I say Flogging Molly, anyone's going to go, they're not going to faint or anything like that. But I think it's cool. I think that's more
I actually
impressive
think
to me than like interviewing somebody just because a lot of people know them,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but that is kind of how it's moving now, that people do have their own sort of niches and their own groups and different things. I mean, has that been, so, I mean, RSU Radio is, I mean, the phrase is what? True alternative music.
Yep. Which has been around for a long time. Yes. I don't know if it really means all of what it used to.
Yeah.
I think that's a throwback to before, when alternative music was kind of as widely commercially successful and popular and all that kind of stuff. But yeah.
You maybe change it like really true alternative music.
Yeah. False
alternative music.
False. I don't know. But that's kind of our little motto. But I mean, it's a mix of everything.
Yeah, that's what I was like. Yeah, I mean, that's I think obviously where it started. Now, I mean, even that's fragmented and done different things. The alt scene, and what even is alt? Is it just not pop? Or what? I mean, what or is it? Is it rock? I bet.
That's the hard thing to define and to figure out, and especially when you're trying to like convey that to somebody who is one, brand new to broadcast and really not as involved in like music scenes and stuff like that, or music genres. They just like music, which is, I mean, at its least pretentious level, that's probably how it should be, right? But yeah, I mean, I think even just what you call alternative has become kind of controversial, because you'll hear a lot of people call alternative, and I'll listen to it and be like, I don't know, it just feels like pop, which is fine, but I feel like the definition of alternative and the sound of alternative has changed a lot. So we'll play stuff on the station that I'll hear it and I'll be like, it's kind of a pop song, but it sounds cool and whatever. That's what they're calling alternative these days. So yeah.
Well, I guess college music's changed.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you do have a lot more, I don't know, I guess, the influences have changed a lot. The sort of like, I think a lot of older alternative music was, it had a more aggressive sound to it, that wall of sound kind of feel. It was very, grunge influenced, or, a lot of times it was rough recordings too. So the ability to do a really good recording is a lot more accessible these days. And so I think you have more people who are moving away from that really rough, raw sound and moving to a more polished sound, which is, again, people are going to equate that with a pop sound. So yeah, it's different. It's something that I kind of struggle with too, because I mean, at my core, I guess I'm kind of a music snob. So I have to kind of go, hold on, it's not what it used to be. It doesn't have to have guitars to be alternative music. It doesn't have to only sound a certain way to be alternative music. So, yeah.
Yeah.
How does the radio station find, because you're constantly playing music, obviously it's a radio station. How do you find these new bands and new people?
Question. I don't think a lot of people know the sort of process.
Yeah. And I have a follow-up question that will lead off on that, hopefully.
Sure. Yeah, we get asked this a lot. So a lot of different ways. Number one, for me, I'm not the music director. I don't spend a lot of time picking music. I program my own radio shows. So for me, it's like what I'm listening to, what my friends are listening to, what the bands who I like are listening to and sharing. It's bands that I find through tours, and if one of my favorite bands is touring with this other band, I'm going to listen to them, and even if they're not coming through town or whatever. So for me, it's a lot of personal experience. For the radio station as a whole, we get music in a ton of different ways. We have bands directly submit music to us. You don't have quite as many as you used to, but they still will send us songs and we'll check them out. And if they fit and if they're good enough, sound quality and things like that, then absolutely we'll play them. We primarily get our music through promoters. And these are people who work with labels, work with artists, and they're paid to distribute music, but they know their audience. They're working specifically with college and community radio stations, and they'll send us, 5-6 albums a week each, and those are called ads. So we'll listen to those. Whatever we put into the system that week is one of our ads for the week, and we chart to what's called the NACC. It's the North American College and Community Radio Charts, something like that. So they're trying to get us to chart. So that's their whole goal there. So a lot of it comes from promoters. Some of it comes directly from the artist. Some of it comes from just what sounds good, what's out there on online and in the music scene at that time.
So if I'm a local band, I'm starting out, is it worthwhile, whether they live in this area or, they live in a completely different state, is it worthwhile for them to send their music to their local radio stations in the hopes that, maybe they'll do something with it?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's such a low effort, way to get your music out there. All you have to do is reach out and say, here's my music. What do you think? And
do you reply, or should they expect?
We try
reply?
to. We get so much music that it's very possible that we miss them. A lot of times, local musicians, I actually talk to them on the phone. They'll call us and say, "Hey, how do we submit our music?" And so I'll make sure I look for it. But yeah, I mean, we try to. Like I said, we get hundreds and hundreds of emails every week when it comes to music. So it's very possible that it gets missed. But if somebody calls us and says, "Hey, here's what we have. Will you listen to it?" 9 times out of 10, we'll listen to it.
Because they're getting mail all the time of CDs. I mean, it's a lot. I never worked on that side of things, but that was always interesting to sort of see the music directors of just having to talk to promoters too. I mean, they'll call and they'll be like, okay, what did this one get on? And saying, well, this, or it's in heavy rotation versus medium rotation, or in different things. I mean, it's just a whole interesting side.
Maintaining those relationships is a big part that a lot of students don't really think about. And sometimes students come in, they're kind of uncomfortable with that because they, your relationship with a promoter is kind of interesting. They're doing you, not a favor, but they're helping you, but at the same time you're helping them. And so it's this weird dynamic in that relationship where you don't really know who has the power. I've been yelled at by promoters before because I didn't chart this, or I charted the wrong album, whatever. And
for those of us who don't really understand what you mean by charting, because I did not work through it. So what does it mean to chart something?
Yeah, I mean, it's just every member of the NACC, every week they submit their top artists of the week. So there are a couple different things that you can submit. There are specialty charts. There are what we call the top ads, which is what I mentioned before, that you get those ads in, whatever 10 artists you added to the system that week, you chart those. But then there's the actual, they call it the top 200 charts. And it's basically the 200 top artists from all of the reported NACC charts. So
particularly college stations.
Yeah. It basically took over organization called CMJ, the College Music Journal, that was the standard for the longest period of time. NACC is not the only one, but it's I think the most common one.
So you're submitting your these are the ones that you guys have played a lot.
Yes.
And you're submitting them, and then they're compiling into their own list.
Yes. Yeah. Oh. So we say we get 30. We don't do 200 ourselves, but we do our top 30 artists of the week, and that's typically based on how many times they get played, things like requests, and if there's ties or something like that. It's if they're requested a lot, if we get positive feedback, if the DJs are really into it. So yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, and then also you have a top 10 countdown, or is that still what it's called?
Yeah.
Where you do your top songs you played. That is what that
top
is?
Artists
top
for
artists.
the week.
Okay.
Yeah. Typically we go off of artist and album. But yeah, it's a top 10 countdown. It's a show we've had on for a long time. It used to be the top 20 whenever I was a student here, but that was just so much time to produce stuff. But yeah, we do that on air as well. So we try and make it into a big deal. It's this is what's most popular right now. This is what we're getting the most calls on, and it's just fun though.
Maybe if you're local, keep an eye out on this band, because maybe they'll they got a 50-50 chance.
Yeah, 50-50 chance of getting famous there. Yeah.
So I mean, we guess we could talk about your radio shows in particular that you have.
You have you do quite a few things.
But do you still have Rude Boy and Riot Radio? Is that?
Yeah. So my main two are Riot Radio and Rude Boy Radio. Riot Radio is the longest running show that I've done. I started that in 2006, like January 2006 was when it came on the air. So it's been on for a while. I took a little break with it whenever I was off living out of town, but yeah, I've been doing that one for the longest amount of time, and it's like punk, hardcore, ska, anything adjacent to that. So that's the one that I pay the most attention to. I've done so many shows that I really have tried to stop doing so many shows and really focus on individual, like on the ones I'm doing now. But I mean, I just like programming the station, and I like the when I have the time to do them. I really love doing the shows, but I just haven't had as much time to do them in recent semesters, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. But
I mean, I think a lot of people know. I mean, it does take a lot to do. I mean, of just like to plan out what you're doing, what you're saying. I mean, if you really take care with it, of like you want to sort of have things to say about each song or artist or whatever. I mean, it is a lot. Like, I mean, for when I did my show, I mean, it was a long time just researching and knowing sort of everything about each of these bands. And
I
just have
some songs you like, they don't sound as good played after one another.
You'd want a vibe, to kind of carry throughout,
And that's the one thing that's kind of difficult about it, is it's not like there's not a science to it. It's almost, I mean, I don't want to sound pretentious or whatever. It's kind of an art form, and there's a way to do it that creates a certain feeling, like you said. It's if it doesn't fit, then it's going to sound weird, or it's not going to convey what you want. That's one of my favorite things is doing that in different contexts. So, like I've got my punk show, and I've got the reggae show, and then I've started a couple other shows recently. But just finding that flow and trying to find a way to make different sounding songs work together is just a lot of fun. So, yeah.
Students here at RSU, often you will let them make their own shows. Like Cade had his own show, and I assume there's new shows that have come and gone just since we've been here.
Yeah.
What is the
rank them?
I couldn't do that. My students will listen. So,
what is your process? Like, obviously you have to have a trust that they're not going to go off the rails, and
what makes you select the shows, and what's the process of doing that, and why did you turn down TBA today?
The process, I mean, it's really not super scientific. I get to know the trustworthiness of my students. They don't start off by doing, we call them specialty shows, where that's the ones they're programming themselves, and they usually have a theme or a genre that they follow. I usually learn how trustworthy a student is by their time doing the sort of generic, like afternoon true alternative music shifts, whether they show up on time, whether they're excited about the music, the research that they do, all that kind of stuff. And as far as
that's why
going
I never
off
got a show.
What's that?
That's why I never got a show.
You never asked. Don't act like you came to me with a plan.
No, not at all. I did not.
So there's that, and then as far as trusting them, that's exactly what you have to do. You have to trust them. It's kind of scary sometimes for some individuals. I'm not going to name any names or anything, but it's like, I don't know. I don't know if you are going to say something totally off the rails. At that point, it's also kind of monitoring the new shows and making sure they're not doing anything they're not supposed to.
Because those aren't live generally. Those are usually programmed at least a few days.
I mean, students typically don't want to go live anymore. It's really weird. I always offer time to practice and give them that experience, but they're scared of going live, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, a lot of times they're pre-recorded, so I can go in and actually listen to it beforehand. I can see what songs they're playing. I can listen to their edits if they're editing, curse words out of songs or whatever. So that's been really nice to feel a little more confident with it. I also just feel like, once you get to know somebody, you can kind of tell whether they're going to be trustworthy and follow the rules and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then as far as, after the show gets started, you listen to audience feedback and you listen yourself to make sure that there's enough variety going on. And if they get too static, then, you try and motivate them, try and help find ways to do new stuff. And, so it's really not like anything major.
Is there a lot? Do you get a lot of feedback from people?
I actually do. I get phone calls. I actually run into people in public a lot who are like, "Man, I really love this show." My mom texts me and is like, "I love this program," and it's not mine either. So it's my students. She told me that if Radio Rewind went off the air because we weren't sure if Caleb was going to keep doing his show. She texted me one day. She's like, if Radio Rewind goes off the air, I'm going to boycott the radio station. So I went to him and I told him, and I think that was the reason why he stuck around. So, but yeah, we do get feedback. I have people in the community who come up to me and just say, "Hey, I'm really enjoying the show. Hey, I don't like this show."
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Wow. You get negative feedback too.
I appreciate that. I like negative feedback. Yeah. I think it's good. I think everybody needs to be able to.
Because I'm sure they have their reasons.
Negative feedback.
Like, I'm sure some feedback is more constructive than others. Some people just, I don't like the sound of it. And there's some are like, they sound uninterested or something. I'm sure that is like really useful to hear if students
and I appreciate, you would sort of have where you would talk to your people like we would sit down and we'd talk about like, oh, I think you've progressed in this sort of way, or you can work on this or whatever. And it was very good to have. Good.
That's good to hear. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I try to do that. I don't always have the time to do that anymore, but I think it's important for students to be comfortable with getting that feedback. Mm-hmm. And honestly, when I say negative feedback, a lot of times it's about my shows. So I have a lot of people in the community, and when I say people in the community, I typically mean like older listeners. They'll come up, "I love your program, except that one punk show you got on Tuesday nights." I'm like, "Hey, I get it, Sometimes I don't listen either."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember one of my, because I had a show at a 80s new wave show.
What was it called?
It's called Planet Nouveau.
There we go.
And it was that was really fun. I learned a lot of.
You did it for several years.
Yeah, useless facts that just now I know that genre incredibly well and everything, and it's nice to have at least a area of expertise with music.
Those facts are never useless though. As long as you know how to use them right, they're never useless.
Yeah. No, it is. Now I have like a pretty massive 80s vinyl collection because of that, and I've worked it into different projects and different things. Like it is. It's going to be useful in the future, and so yes. So I guess it isn't useless for that reason. But no, I remember, you'd sometimes get people, because I had a page as well. People would message you and say, like the show or whatever. And I remember one in particular that we got. It was right after Kathy passed away, and there was a someone, because I talked about that at the end of my show, and how much of a impact she had on me and everything. And that was one of people, reached out after that of just hearing that, or even like I think to the stations thing of hearing that was like they were touched by that. Yeah. And so that's an example of, sometimes you get in there and you don't think, am I just talking into a void because you don't get any feedback whatsoever? It's not a medium in which you get a lot of feedback.
Yeah.
But every once in a while it does come through in different ways. It's like, oh, there are people listening on the other side of them.
When I started, we would get 8 phone calls an hour. Like people liked to call in, and then, obviously social media and other forms of media kind of drew people towards being more passive in their involvement with their media channels. So they don't call their radio stations. They don't write into their newspapers.
Probably comment more on like Facebook or something.
Yeah, probably something more like that. But we don't get a whole ton of calls anymore, but we still do every once in a while. And really, when I say people talk to me, I really think that I get as much feedback in person as I do over the phone anymore. And so, yeah, it's just, it's weird the way that it's evolved. And this is not just us. This is like, radio stations that are highly rated are giving that, like, they'll give away concert tickets, and they can't give them away if you have to call in. You have to set it up where you do it on social media or text. Like, it's a really common thing in radio these days. People just do not want to call in. So I don't know why.
Scared of.
So if there's a contest going where you have to call in, you have a pretty good chance at winning.
You have a better chance. Yeah. people still do call in, but it's just like there are big stations that are having this issue. And so, yeah, it's just weird. It's totally changed the dynamic of it. But yeah, you get people who, I mean, when my dad passed away, I mentioned something about, like, I played a song at the end of one of my shows, like, my dad introduced me to this, and just kind of gave a little background on it for 8 seconds. And as soon as it ran, somebody called and was like, "Hey man, that's why I listen to radio, is like, you get that personal feel to it." So yeah, you still get, and it's kind of cool because then you get to make that little connection with people.
Yeah, I think it takes something to kind of, I think, move them to do that now a little bit more. Like, I mean, like it'd have to really be something that moved them, and so
yeah,
that makes
absolutely.
sense.
Do we want to spend just a few minutes talk about Kathy, because she was the GM before yourself, and we all knew her. I assume she was your professor at one point in time. So she was all of our professors, and I mean, she had a big impact on communication students. I don't think there's one person that could say who had her who she didn't impact in some way.
Yeah.
I mean, I've said it before, but I think of outside of like my dorm, Kathy's office was probably where I was at most in RSU during my time here. Just because I would be in there a lot, just talking to her, and she liked to talk and liked to, give advice and like to just have conversations and everything. And I really looked up to her as a mentor and everything. I miss seeing her and having, I would have liked to have, talked to her about different things. So I do miss that a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of, it's really weird because we are entering into like I don't know what the right word is, a generation of student who not only never got to take a class where they didn't know her, like they don't know the name Kathy, but if you go back 5 years, whatever, if you said the name Kathy, like it has an emotional impact on people, whether it's good or bad. Kathy she was definitely a mentor to me as well, and she had a lot of positive impact on a lot of people. There are people who didn't necessarily like her teaching style and things like that.
I think that's fair to say.
She was a huge personality, and the name Kathy, no matter where you were on campus, it meant something. It's kind of weird to not have that impact anymore.
I had a very, and Cade can attest to this. My relationship with Kathy was a bit rocky, but I look back on it and I do believe that she cared.
Yeah,
and
she felt so very strongly about everything.
Yeah,
and sometimes she was a big personality. I was a big personality, and I think our personalities, were conflicted, but it didn't. I think she always cared. Like I went off to go to Florida in Disney. And when I did that, she was, through all our ups and downs, she was like, "Alex, I do think this is going to be good for you. I think this will be good for you to get away."
It's probably your last conversation with her, wasn't it?
I think, because I think she passed while I was down in Florida. But she was very supportive of it, of just being like, you should go do this, because I needed to kind of get a reset in, and I think she knew that. And so, I had my problems with her, and, I didn't do well with some of her teaching styles, but, she did care, and, she gave a lot of chances in her classes, her writing for the media class, you turn it in, she gives edits like, this is what you need to fix, and then sends it back out. You turn it in, and then there's a different problem.
Rewrites.
But she wanted us to do well, and I respect that, and I love that about her.
Yeah.
And that, even, we could fight, but I could see her the next day, and she, we apologized multiple times to each other, but at the end of the day, she cared. And I think, that was, I do miss her, and I loved her for that.
I like that she cared. Even if you obviously know if her feelings got hurt, she'd make that very clear. And different thing, we'd often do that. And but she would. I like that she was so. I mean, she just cared so deeply, and I think that sometimes it cut the other way. But I think that was very much part of her great personality.
Yeah.
And I mean, I wouldn't have worked at the TV station if it wasn't for her. I wouldn't have worked here at the, I wouldn't have been taken away from the TV station and brought here without her. So.
Yeah. Well, I think she was also somebody who really, like, when you talk about she was abrasive or she was challenging or something like that, it's because she wanted people to do well and she wanted people to do things right. Mm-hmm. And I think that was one thing that when I was a student, she mellowed out a lot by the time you guys got here. When I was a student, it was definitely there was a lot of very straightforward criticism of your work. And at first, I think for me, it was kind of like you need to mellow out a little bit. And after I graduated and I after I came back and started teaching, I was like, you know what? I mean, I really appreciate the way that she approached things because it taught me that you don't have to settle, that you sometimes have to put in a lot of work for something to turn out right, that you can expect like as close to perfection as possible out of your productions and things like that. So I think that the people who didn't really like the abrasiveness of the way that she taught and gave feedback and stuff like that, I think some of those people just weren't really all that into being challenged into being perfect with their product, And
it was good to hear outside things. I mean, I remember when she would give feedback. Okay, so I listened to your voice track today, and you just sounded bored. I don't know, just could you be happy or at least just sound happy?
Yes. That was one of the most challenging things is can you sweeten the audio? Well, what do you not like about it? Just make it sweeter. So she knew what she wanted, but sometimes I didn't know exactly what she wanted. But then you go in and you mess around with it, and she'd be like, "Oh yeah, that's what I was looking for."
I remember she would even give things. She's like, "Well, sometimes it's would you just say it with a smile and people can hear that."
That was like her. That was her bread and butter for anyone who was like new to cracking the mic. Yeah. No, I love the Kathy voice. Like when you're talking, like you can't not, and she would love that. Like we're not making fun of her at all. Like she would love that.
She had a very unique. It was a very unique voice. Like there's, I don't know, anyone else with a voice like hers.
Yeah. No, Andrew and I, we would like whenever after she passed away, like for the next couple weeks, we would just be like Andrew, like just to kind of fill that gap, So yeah. But yeah, huge influence on the radio station still, and huge influence on me, and yeah, definitely feels weird to be in her office sometimes. Like I still go in there sometimes. I'm like, that's Kathy's office.
Is it weird to be? I mean, you're kind of removed from the station too. I mean, like the station's here, and you're kind of.
Yeah, I didn't love that move, but yeah, I mean, I'm still pretty connected, and I do less of the day-to-day stuff than I used to. I have to look at it bigger picture, otherwise I just won't get everything done. So I think it kind of helps me get away from that, like, going into the studio every 30 minutes and checking things and checking the, doing all the stuff that I can have students do. So yeah, it's a bit of a give and take on that, but it's also kind of nice because sometimes I can just like shut out the station and work on class or, do something else for 30 minutes or something. But yeah, it is weird because then I'm not in here. I'm not hearing what's going on. I don't know what my students are doing back there sometimes. Yeah.
Well, anything else you want? I want to pivot to his music. But do you have anything else about radio station stuff?
No, I don't.
Okay, you do music.
Yes, you're a musician.
You could call it that, I guess. I didn't know this was going in that direction. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You're in a band, right?
Well, you play bass. Is that what you do?
Yes.
Oh, they get bass players. You know what they say about bass players?
You know what they say about bass players?
I don't. I was hoping you would have something.
They don't say a lot about bass players, I don't think. We don't get talked about a lot, I don't think.
It's always like the drummer or the guitarist. Like the bass is...
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't
Like
yeah.
but you hold the band together.
Other bass players come up to me and they say, "Hey, I liked your bass tone, not your playing, the tone of the bass."
See, when I play Guitar Hero or something, I always played bass. I'm a big bass fan.
Nice.
Oh, okay.
Don't know if that means anything to you, but
Does that mean anything to you?
Not really. I can appreciate
so sorry.
that.
Yeah.
No strong feelings.
He's not going to
either way.
date you if you continue down this path.
Fair enough.
yeah, so you're in a band.
Yeah. I must say, I've never really talked to you about your band. I think you keep it kind of separate or whatever. You know?
Well, I mean, it's So I the band I'm in right now, we're called Soaker. We're more of like the hardcore punk side of things, and so it just doesn't have as much appeal, I don't think, to most people in my professional life. I'm not like ashamed of it or anything, but I don't think that most people would listen to it and be like,
is this like
hey, that's great.
Is this the kind of band that you would like mosh pit to?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see how most of the people you are professionally acquainted with might not be moshers.
I mean, it's not that they don't that they like judge me or anything like that, but it's it's just like they're not really.
Have you invited anyone to go to your shows?
Have you invited anyone to a mosh pit?
Mm-hmm. Do you enjoy the mosh pit?
Like send out RSVPs, like
come join us in the mosh.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to think who's come to my shows. I feel like a couple people have come to my shows. One time when COVID was happening, we played a live stream concert at the Mercury Lounge in Tulsa.
Say, when COVID was happening, we had a giant mosh pit.
We did not, but yeah, I think like
has Hannah ever? I feel like
Hannah went to one of my band's shows, a previous one that I was playing in.
She said never again.
I would hope so. That was. I remember that show. That was a weird one. No, I can't remember who's come to my shows. I don't think a lot of people. I don't invite a lot of people to go.
Do you like people showing up at your shows?
I don't mind it. I'm fine with it.
Did you get in your head if you see someone out in the audience? Okay.
I really don't care. Like, I don't think you understand how little I care. We're really noisy, and so we're not like trying to be super precise or anything like that. We're just like high energy, and we have fun, and it's just it's fun, and it's a little bit of expression, and so if I make a mistake, whatever, who cares? Yeah. Okay.
Well, Tip, what's advice that you give to people who are interested in going into radio, if they're interested in that field?
Well, I think the number one thing, I mean, if you're talking traditional radio, I think the number one thing you want to do is develop your personality and figure out what differentiates you from the other people who are trying to work in the field, because there are a shrinking number of jobs, and it's a medium where you have to make your audience feel like they know you. And when you have things like Spotify, when you have every other piece of music that you could possibly want where you could just directly go to that, you have to provide them something. So for me, develop a personality and really get to know the music that you're playing. So you're not just back announcing and front announcing. You're actually providing them with something beyond that. So I think that is the starting point for a lot of people. And then from there, it's like, what do you want to do? Figure out how to learn more than just being on air. A lot of the students I have now actually really prefer the behind the scenes kind of stuff. So learning specific software and getting experience little by little is probably the most important thing if you want to do behind the scenes kind of stuff. And just like understanding basic concepts like timing and it's stuff that really doesn't seem very important, but is like hugely important if you don't follow it. And really paying attention to detail and being consistent and things like that. So a lot of basic stuff like that.
Do you have any just general life advice?
That's too big. I don't know. Don't take everything super seriously. I know that's kind of the opposite of what a media professional would typically say, but yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of people take stuff way too seriously and let things affect them that they shouldn't let affect them. Try and find a way to be present in the world and make a difference in the world without letting that affect you negatively. I think that's one of the biggest things that can feel really overwhelming when you're trying to, have your impact on the world. And if you can find a way to do it without letting it make you feel bad, I think that's one of the nicest realizations you can have. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
That makes sense, Alex.
Yeah.
Cool.
I like that you went to a
Click the wrong
close-up
button.
of yours.
Yeah, but I rolled with it.
Well, generally, this is where we ask, do you have anything you want to plug? And obviously, we did just plug your, but do you have anything else to plug? Anywhere people can follow you?
I think the biggest thing, follow RSU Radio, rsu-radio.com, 91.3 FM if you're in Claremore and Tulsa, at RSU Radio on all the social media, on Instagram and Facebook, and I think we're still on, what's it, X now? Twitter. I still call it Twitter. I think we're still on X.
Can you listen to RSU? I mean, I know the answer to this, but can you listen to RSU Radio like anywhere? Like just pull up the website and just listen to it?
rsu-radio.com, and then we're actually rebuilding our player right now, so it's going to be a lot more streamlined maybe by the time you post this. You can also use the TuneIn app or any of those like FM accumulator apps. They just take our stream. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think like whenever you just like can ask Google if they could play, and they have, because I've had them play.
Yeah.
Radio, so because I guess it gets it through TuneIn.
Yeah.
So,
we actually have a lot of listeners through TuneIn now. So rsu-radio.com though if you're just wanting to get it directly from us.
And just a bunch of, I don't know if we kind of talked about it, but just there's so many different variety shows. I mean, everything from like 1950s music to then you have like bluegrass, and then you have people with a lot of. I mean, I don't even know what the students are doing now, but they each have like their. A lot of them have shows.
Well, and we have a lot of students who are doing shows. So some of the newer shows are Brit Waves. Jace creates a show every week about British music, and it's new and it's old, and it's a lot of Beatles. He loves the Beatles.
I saw they covered the last Beatles.
Yeah, we did a special thing for that. We've got Her Voice with Sky, which is all women artists, or at least women adjacent artists, where they're a driving force in the band. We've got one of our newer shows called Hidden Gems, which is like it's pop music, but it's like pop songs that aren't the singles. So it's like kind of taking that alternative approach to pop music, which is still a foreign concept to me. But we're branching out a little bit and trying to serve more audiences.
Just songs that that don't get because they weren't a single.
Yeah,
like even still into today, which is just strange to me. Whenever it's all streaming or whatever, that there's still songs that are made that it's like, wow. And that was when I did my show of like, here's a band that I liked and everything. And then you would dig through their whole album and you're like, well, why wasn't this released as a single? Because it would have been a huge hit. And there's several examples of that.
Yeah. And I think music is changing like that as well, because the radio it used to be there was the radio song, and that was the one that had the right energy level and had the right hook and all that kind of stuff. And now you're seeing more songs that are a variety of different, like you have the sad songs and you have the songs that are lower energy and you have songs that don't even have percussion in them, and so there are a lot more songs getting out there that don't necessarily fit that radio song feel. So that's kind of nice. Yeah.
I really like RSU Radio because like you can tune in at any time, and if you tune into like our local stations that we know, like 104.5, 97.5, 96, generally what you're going to get. With 91.3, you don't know. You can tune in, and I know there's been times where I tuned in and I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. There's also been times that I was like, not for me.
Exactly.
And particularly on the weekends is when you kind of have the most sort of specialty shows and different things going on, or the evenings. Yeah,
weekends and evenings are specialty shows, but even throughout the day, we have a really good variety. And I don't program most of this stuff, so I'm not just talking about myself here.
Yeah.
But we do a really we have a lot of different hands in determining what we're playing and setting the rotation and all that kind of stuff. And it's really cool to have all that collaboration. And we have a lot of community members right now too, who are not directly connected with RSU. Like a lot of our volunteers are graduates and they've been here for a while, but some of our volunteers right now are just community members who just like music and know a lot about it.
That's cool.
That's been one thing that I've been really proud to kind of bring to the airwaves recently. So we have like Feel the Drive with Micah Phillips, and Spin Theory with DJ Amanda Williams, and just some really cool like people who are known in Tulsa but not necessarily connected with RSU, who have stepped up and just said, here's an hour of my time every week, and it's just really cool. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I think great at the very end to sort of say, I mean, this all here wouldn't have been possible without RSU, and the ability to that this program had to where we could experiment and kind of be bad for some, and kind of get a lot of these bad ideas and out and everything, and then kind of craft what, try different things, see if that's something was interested in, see if something that I liked. And that was always that I really enjoyed that, and the ability that we have this station and that has, everything here that we can do it. So I appreciate it. And I appreciated, where we've been able to do different things. We were going to have a talk show at one point, and that I think that its failure had led to, I think, this in a lot of ways, and it allowed me to sort of see what I didn't want to do. And we kind of joke about it, but I'm glad that didn't happen, because I think that was
I wish it would have happened. I think that would have been cool, but I definitely understand what you're saying there.
Yeah, I mean, because I think it allowed me to sort of realize what I liked and didn't like about. I mean, that must have been so current event related, and that I like that this. We just get to have conversations with people and have it, and each one's different from each other. I think that's
absolutely
really good.
Well, and I have to say it's really cool to see students like you who go out and take those skills, and they're not just doing the thing that I showed them how to do. It's like they're doing their own thing with that. And it's really cool to see your programs, this and the double feature, like progress and become their own thing, their own intellectual property. And it's more than just, whatever you directly learn from me. It's like you're applying all of the ideas that you've had and growing it into something that is very, very unique. But I can also kind of see what you picked up from here, and it's really cool to see that. And I've had other students who have gone out and they've done their own radio show, or like Ariel went and did Focus Black Oklahoma right after this, and we have students who go out and work in production and work in video and your regular job as well. So it's just really cool to see all that. But in particular, it's been really cool to see your show grow, and it's been a lot of fun to follow along with it. So
thank you.
Yeah. Appreciate that. I mean, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, great. Is that the show?
I think that's it.
Okay.
I think that's,
thanks for being here.
Tune into 91.3.
Yeah, 91.3.
Absolutely. Are we famous? Did we hit our 50% mark?
We hit it? Is this going to
I think this podcast is a 50-50 chance of really going off. I don't have any coins on me.
Have a coin? All
right, well, we failed then. Automatic.
Oh, no.
Oh, well.
Oh, so sorry.
But, I think every clip we post is a 50-50 chance of going, viral. So
just post a lot of clips.
With Subway Surfers underneath it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Cade, you're really committing to the...
Oh, we're really going for it. Okay.
Heads we're famous, tails we're not famous.
We'll never know.
Okay. I think it's a tail, sadly.